Welcome to the Halloween scary episode of the Hard Mode Gaming Podcast, where we're going to talk about scary stuff in video games. Boo! Ah! You got me again.
Jump scares, baby.
Alright, this...
What a great intro.
This week, we both played very few games, but he played an actual horror game. So let's just start off with that one, because I think that's a good way to go. So just start talking about that game.
Alright, so on stream this week I started up F.E.A.R. I played for about 5-ish hours or so. F.E.A.R. is essentially like a Half-Life mixed with Max Payne hybrid with horror elements.
And this is the first time you played it?
This is the first time I've ever played it.
Even though it's from like 2008?
Yes.
Or something like that? What year is it from?
2005. So, visually, it is very much inspired by Half-Life. The AI is actually, like, legit brilliant in the game. Like, they're very aggressive. They like, play strategically when they're fighting you, and they'll destroy you if you give them a chance. The weapons are fun. Honestly, I really enjoy the game. And then the Max Payne aspect is that you can slow time, but instead of like leaping around corners and stuff, it's kind of like a lean. Like you can lean around corners really far
to like see what's there.
Yeah, so basically leaning around a corner and slow-mowing feels like you're kind of jumping around a corner. But the slow time effects also kind of like there's an enemy that is so fast it's really hard to shoot, and they're like ninjas. They like jump through windows and blast through doors and all this stuff, and if you slow time then you can actually get a beat on them and you can see like,
and you can aim better
that, then they're just like and then there was a jump scare, one in particular that really got me, that you turn to go down a ladder, and as you're going down the rung, the little girl, what's her name, Alma, is just standing at the top, and you're like, oh man! And you like slide down the ladder, and when you turn around from the ladder, there's another guy just standing right in your face, and I was like, what?
Dude, that's the worst.
So, the level design is pretty linear and for the most part straightforward, but like visually and the way the level design is laid out, you can feel the Half-Life inspiration. Yeah. Like you'll climb on stuff that kind of looks mundane. Like there's secrets hidden. You can get like health upgrades and I think it's called reflex upgrades, but it's your slow time.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoy the game. It has like a different way of first person shooting. Like you can't ADS, but you can kind of like zoom in on your crosshair, kind of.
Yeah. There's
heavy recoil, so you have to get used to controlling recoil. And then there's a good variety of weapons. It's supposed to be like semi-futuristic, so overall I really like it. It's not as heavy on horror as I thought it was going to be. There is horror, but it's not as heavy on horror. And then the other thing I really like is that they're not afraid to make areas of levels just completely pitch black. Like, completely. And you have to turn on your flashlight
so that's
to
like
be
a
able
big
to
part
see.
of the horror elements.
And the other thing is, like, for a game in 2005, if you have your flashlight on, the enemies will be like, there's a light up ahead, and like they'll notice that you turned on your light. Yeah. So like if you're in the pitch dark and you know you can see like light ahead of you and there's enemies, it's best to turn off your flashlight so you can surprise them. And
I was thinking about that recently when I forget who talked about it, but somebody talked about Splinter Cell, and I started thinking about how
Frank.
I started thinking about how in like Chaos Theory and stuff, the mechanics of like needing to shoot the lights out to sneak around enemies and crap. Like, when was that game made? That's a really old game.
2005, I think.
That game was unbelievable for its time.
2005, dude. Chaos Theory to this
there's
day,
games now that still don't implement that sort of thing into like a stealth game.
Chaos Theory to this day is my favorite stealth game ever made.
It's unbelievable.
It's ridiculous.
It was so far ahead of its time.
It really was. It's really
crazy.
Really good. But yeah, F.E.A.R. overall, I haven't finished it yet, so I can't speak to like the end of the game or anything. I don't even know how long it is. I would imagine it's probably like 8 to 10 hours, which I'm closing in on the end.
Yeah.
But so far, I really enjoy it. I don't totally understand the story, but as far as gameplay, level design, the visuals hold up. It like I said, the Half-Life vibes. It's just like an updated version, and I could easily say, "Oh, this is a Half-Life level," and take a screenshot, and people would probably be like, "Yeah, that
looks
might
like
be
one."
it." Yeah, F.E.A.R is pretty solid. I'm probably gonna play F.E.A.R 2 once I finish F.E.A.R 1 because I have both on PC, and I've just for some reason never played them.
And 2's supposed to be pretty good too, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, F.E.A.R. Right now for me it's like a 9 out of 10, but I haven't finished, so maybe it'll start to drag or something.
That's pretty good.
I honestly think the gunplay is different from like the majority of things that I've played in the past like 10 years.
Yeah.
And just the fact that it's like it's not ultra modern and everything, it has to be slick and perfect, and it has like these weird bugs that you can find and stuff, and just the way that the level design is, where it's like I said, there's like a stack of things that you can just climb up, where like there's a ledge that you walk around and it's really skinny. And I was talking about this in modern games, it would like have you put the character put their back against the wall, and then you just hold left and they like do one of those like side moves. Or it would be like one of those things where they're like tilt the stick left or right, and you're like balancing like this.
Yeah.
But in F.E.A.R, like older games like Max Payne, Half-Life, all that kind of stuff, like you just go out on the ledge and you just walk. And I prefer that, honestly. Like, keep me in control. I can walk around a ledge, and if I fall off, I'm an idiot.
And
like,
don't introduce like a sudden new mechanic or like way to control your guy out of nowhere just for that one specific platform.
Yeah, and like even if you think about it, in The Last of Us Part 2, there's like 3 spots where you use that mechanic where you're like balancing
in the whole game.
It's completely unnecessary. Like, just let me walk.
It could just be you trying to control your player.
Yeah, so it has that like older style and approach to level design, which I honestly
it's like where they don't like. It's almost like it's when they didn't try too hard. Like now they try so hard to be like advanced and like good that it almost sometimes.
And back then
stinks.
It was just like they kind of made. To be clear, the level layouts like of buildings are not realistic at all in F.E.A.R, but like they give you the feel that they could be realistic.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes there's like corridors and like hallways and offices that just make no sense at all, but it still is like grounded and feels like a real building, kind of.
Yeah.
Whereas most modern level design, not that they don't do that, but it's just very streamlined and like it feels so real that it's fake, kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So yeah, F.E.A.R's pretty good. I'm gonna finish it probably Monday or tomorrow or Monday. I haven't decided. Maybe I'll stream tomorrow and just play some F.E.A.R, and then I'll move on from there. But that's the horror game I played this week.
The game that we've both played this week, that is the only really new game I've played recently, I've been playing it the last few days, is Ghostrunner. If you don't know what Ghostrunner is, it's sort of like a Mirror's Edge, Super Meat Boy, what else would you mix it with?
Katana Zero
kind of hybrid.
It's like a first-person, one-hit death game.
You're first person. The main point of the game is to run through levels quickly by wall running, jumping, platforming, grappling, sliding, and then you have a katana. You slice enemies in half in one hit, but if they hit you, you die in one hit.
And they have guns.
And you have to figure out how to navigate the map while also navigating around the enemies or to the enemies to kill them while not getting hit by the other enemies, etc. And you are a ghost runner. and the story is interesting. I don't really know what's going on. I think there's like a guy called the Architect, and he talks to you, and apparently he like created the world you're in, and you're a Ghostrunner who's like people who were supposed to hire. They were supposed to be hired to like protect the, I guess, normal citizens who are getting like slaughtered and enslaved by this woman named Mara or whatever her name is that I haven't really seen yet. But like you go through each level and you get a score, you get like a time, like all that stuff, so you can compare yourself to other people. Every time you die, you just restart. You can get like checkpoints throughout the level. It's not like you restart the whole thing. But like, there's two things that I really, really like about that I kind of wish were in more campaigns. And I know this game is only like that because it's like a Super Meat Boy type, like you die, you start over type game. But one thing is the second I die, I press my R key and I'm instantly at the checkpoint. Nothing happens in between. There's no loading screen. There's nothing.
Doesn't say you're dead.
I'm dead. R, back playing again instantly. The other thing is dialogue. So in most games, the first one I think of is like Call of Duty, right? Any game, really. Any game in campaign. So say you're in the middle of a fight and old Jordan is standing next to you in the fight, and for whatever reason, some like cinematic type thing while you're still playing starts happening where he's talking to you, and he's like, "Hey, Robert, we gotta go over here," and you die mid-sentence. As soon as you respawn, he's going to be like,
"Hey, Robert."
"Hey, Robert." And then if you die 57 times, he's going to say it every single time. In Ghostrunner, if he goes, "Hey, Robert, we're going to go over here," you respawn, he starts with the next sentence after that. He'll be like, "So that we can go to the moon and fight zombies." And then if you die again, he'll start with the next sentence. And when he finishes, if you continue dying, it just stops. It's just over. And I noticed that happening like right away, and I was like, this is the greatest thing in the history of video games. Because as soon as I died in one spot like 30 times, I was like, man, if I have to listen to this person talk over and over, I'm going to be so mad. And when it just like continued the dialogue as I was alive and then ended when it ended, I was like, shoo!
Yeah, some games recently have been doing that, but like Final Fantasy VII Remake did not. And I noticed it big time, like, if you die, they just keep saying the same things.
There's some games where it gets so annoying, and especially if it's a game where it's like high difficulty and they know that you're going to die multiple times like in one spot, and you can't stop them from just repeating themselves. Like, we've awoken the hive.
Yeah, there was one complaint I had about the Doom Eternal DLC, which Doom Eternal still Game of the Year. Woo! The one complaint I have about the DLC is that the final boss, without spoiling anything, if you die, it plays the same little cutscene every time you die, and you can't skip it. And it's like, on top of the fact that you can't skip it, it's also completely pointless after they show it to you the first time. Like, once you know, you're good.
Right.
But it just, like, every time you die, you just have to do it again.
There should be a law that every cutscene should be skippable. Like, once I've seen it, I don't need to see it again.
Oh, man, I played a little Red Dead 2 to record footage, and holy crap, man. It took, like, without exaggerating, it took me, like, 12 minutes to get from, like, starting the game up, watching a cutscene, riding a horse to my objective, and then getting off the horse, looking at something,
and like going to do
walking down a hill, and like in all that time I did nothing, and it was like 12-13 minutes straight of just nothing.
That's why that game lost me.
I was like, whoo, man.
Horse riding simulator.
It is so slow, especially in the beginning. I know. Oh man, I don't want to get started on it because we can talk about it.
All right,
for a while.
let's not. Back to Ghostrunner though. I just wanted to say that I like it a lot. I already have a few hours into it. I've only owned it for like 2 days or something. The movement obviously
is a lot
super solid,
like Titanfall.
Super solid,
a lot like Titanfall.
Great wall running mechanics. You got a wall run, a boost, a slide that can sort of propel you forward. If you slide and jump, you go a little faster, and you can boost out of that. You can boost like side to side and backwards. The dodge. The wall running feels really good. You climb up on stuff that's climbable. Just the movement, and there's a grapple that I'm playing on mouse and keyboard. And you just right click the grapple, and it just launches you up, and you can use that momentum into like a slide or a wall run or into another grapple, or you can come down and boost onto an enemy and slice their head off. And then like there's a move you can get on your like ability key where if you line up 3 enemies, you hold it down, and then when you let it go, you can just slice all 3 of their heads off at the same time and then just like slide away and keep going. I just got a new ability called the Tempest that basically is just like a push. You just like go like that. It's like it's like a forced push. You go like that and you just launch somebody off a cliff or like into a wall or like whatever you want to do. And I haven't tried it yet, but I had a feeling that I could use that Tempest ability to propel myself up or sideways. So I was thinking, like, what if I was wall running and then I, like, hit myself off the wall and shot back the other way? And, like, dude, I feel like there's so much potential with stuff you can do with movement in that game. People are going to be, like, figuring out how to finish levels in 15 seconds. Mm-hmm. It's going to be insane.
The movement is extremely cool.
That game's fun.
And cutting enemies' heads off and stuff is really
if you just want like a challenging game with really solid movement that's really fun, and you won't get frustrated easily, because if you get frustrated easily, that game can get frustrating because it is hard. It is not an easy game, and it's meant to kind of learn from your mistakes and keep replaying. So if that's not like something you like, then it might not be for you. But if you like really good movement, like parkour, wall running, that kind of stuff, cutting people's heads off and just moving really fast, play Ghostrunner.
And I think it's like $20 right now.
I think it's on sale on Steam for $23 right now. It's usually $30, I think.
Yeah, and it looks good too on PC.
It looks amazing. I was actually very impressed with the visuals.
The visual style, it's like a sci-fi, futuristic, like cyberpunk kind of style, and it looks really cool.
Yep. I
the
agree.
Environments and everything.
I was pleasantly surprised by how good it looks and feels. It feels very smooth. It runs very well on PC. It looks good. Killing enemies feels amazing. Pretty much everything in that game. I really like that game so far. It's good.
Yeah. So did you play anything else this week?
I played a little Hades. I don't feel like I played enough to have a lot of new information on it because I still suck at it. And I didn't really get any further than I did last week.
Well, like I said, I think last week or the week before, I got my first clear, and today I started playing again. I played for about an hour, and I got new story information, a new cutscene between, like, Hades and Zagreus.
That's still so cool, man.
I got some new abilities, like, because I cleared and escaped or whatever, Poseidon was like, "Hey Zagreus, since you finally achieved your goal, I got some new abilities for you." And I was like, "No way!" Dude. That's pretty sweet.
So like the gods, like you unlock new abilities to get from them.
Yeah.
As you beat the game.
And also, so if the further you get, the more stuff you unlock, but also like the better of a relationship you have with each person. Like if you give them the gold bottle or whatever, or you just keep talking to them, then they also give you more stuff.
Dude, that's great.
And then that. I also got something new in the shop not the shop back at Hades Palace or the House of Hades it's called, where you use those like little colorful gems, the like builders or whatever.
Yep.
I unlock new stuff with them because I use
sweet new curtains in.
Yeah, well,
maybe an area rug.
I used the shield and made it to the Elysian Fields or whatever it's called. Is that what it's called?
I don't know the names of anything.
Oh, so it's Tartarus, Asphodel.
I've never made it past Asphodel, so you lost me after that.
And then I think it's Elysium or something like that for the 3rd floor. Anyway, I cleared a few floors with the shield for the first time. I beat the 1st floor before and got the little blood thing, but then I got a diamond and all that crap. So, I unlocked some new stuff, and like the game just keeps going, and I keep getting more information. It's pretty cool.
That game's so sweet, but I feel like I need to like play nothing else for a month just to
you just have to buckle down and
get good and
do a
unlock
few
stuff.
runs. Focus on upgrading permanently instead of just like your current run at least for a little bit until you get the hang of everything.
Gotta play that long game.
Yeah. And you'll feel yourself start to get better once you understand how everything works and you get some new abilities and stuff. Because the more you play, the more you unlock too. So
right. So your character gets better as you get better, pretty much.
And stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You want to talk a little bit about your Prodeus endeavors?
Yeah. So I didn't play a whole lot of games this week because I was working on a level in Prodeus, which is the closed beta game that we've been playing and editing levels in.
It's sort of a retro FPS Doom-like type game.
Yes. So I spent a lot of time this week working on my level, and I finally posted it. If you check out my Twitter / YouTube, I have the link to the level if you have access to Prodeus.
We can put that in the description of this video as well.
That as well. So my level was meant to be like a speed runnable, fast paced, linear level. Basically, you start in this small building that I called the level Nexus because I kind of thought of it as like a central hub to like where people land on this planet or something. Regardless, there's like a quick run through a few areas. There's enemies. There's secrets. It uses the switches. You shoot a switch and it makes something happen. So in my case, there's like platforms that rise and fall when you shoot a switch. And then you run through those areas, and then I have a combat arena that was heavily inspired by the Doom Eternal DLC because they have combat arenas in there that are really damn good and really, really fun to play.
If you don't know what a combat arena is, it's in a campaign of a game, usually a shooter, where you're moving through small areas and corridors and constantly moving and fighting enemies, and then you get to one big room
and
where
you're like,
where a bunch of enemies spawn, and maybe you kill some and then more spawn, and you have to clear that room to move on. That's a combat arena.
Yeah, so Doom's combat arenas contain like weaving passageways and multiple levels and teleporters and gravity lifts that'll like shoot you up. And
there's always like movement stuff,
monkey
upgrades.
Bars that you can swing off of and get more height. And so the new DLC has some really, really good combat arenas. And
spicy.
When I started playing, it's called The Ancient Gods Part 1. When I started playing that, I was like, I really want to put a combat arena in my level. So towards the end of my level, there's a pretty big combat arena. You fight a large quantity of enemies, but it's one of those things where you have to keep moving. You have to play it like it's Doom. You have to be shooting, moving, dodging, using all the tools at your disposal to do it.
All the time.
So I think I have roughly 3 waves. Basically, the way I set it up was you enter the room, it triggers enemies to spawn, and then as you kill some of those enemies in the wave, it'll spawn more enemies in the first wave. And then when you kill like the big enemy in the first wave, it spawns the big second wave. Mm-hmm. And then once you kill the big boss of the second wave, then the door unlocks. And then in my level, it's basically like this. Up here is the 3rd floor, then there's stairs going down to the 2nd floor, then there's stairs going down to the 3rd floor. It's like a slant, basically. But there's lots of areas to jump. There's a teleporter to quickly move from one side of the level to the other, from the top right to the bottom left. And then there's obviously like health pickups, ammo pickups, armor pickups, and cover and that kind of stuff. But the idea was to make it as doomy as possible. So you have to keep moving, you have to keep shooting, you have to play smart and fast, very fast, or you'll just get crushed, basically. And then the final section of my level is a twist on the shotgun trial that is in the Prodeus beta, where you're basically running across this long bridge, and there's platforms ahead of you that you can't walk on them, and you have to shoot a switch and they slide out and you can just keep running straight. Well, instead of doing exactly that with mine, I made it so the platforms are like this, and they switch back and forth when you shoot a switch. So as you run, you have to jump, then shoot, then land on the platform that slides underneath of you, and then finally you get to the end of the level. It's speed runnable, and so far the fastest time is like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, or maybe under. On harder difficulties, it's probably tough to get through the combat arena that fast. And I allow you to get the shotgun, the pistol, and the Gatling gun, and then the enemies drop the
lightning gun, whatever that thing's
Protean.
The big thing that electrocutes enemies.
Yeah, and each weapon has like secondary fires. So regardless, I'm pretty happy with how the level turned out. Like, it's exactly what I wanted to make: linear, fast, a combat arena, interesting switch mechanics. I think it turned out well visually. I redid all the lighting from where a level starts in there. I like how it turned out.
I liked it. I tried to get I don't know why I'm talking like that. I tried to get the high score, but I didn't.
Yeah, and then there's a little secret area where you can get some extra ammo, health, armor, that kind of stuff. You can get the auto map.
I tried it on the hardest difficulty. I died like 7 times. But yeah. I did it on medium difficulty like twice.
It's definitely doable. And honestly, I think it's pretty fun to play through, and it's fun to try and get a high score in that game.
Yep.
And
I agree.
The early access version of Prodeus comes out November 10th, and the cool thing is it has this online section in the main menu, and it has a map browser where you can find other people's maps that they've created and play them, or you can put in a little code, and the code brings you to the specific map
that you're looking for.
So if you have my code, you can just play my level. So, there's endless possibilities for what you can make in the game. The level editor is pretty ridiculous.
I'm pretty psyched for that, because there's going to be a whole base game, and then you're just going to have endless community maps that you can play.
Right.
And I'm sure people are going to make some cool stuff.
And I'm sure by the time the finished product is out, there's going to be a whole lot of extra assets that we don't have now in the closed
and you'll
beta.
be able to do even more.
But they have material skyboxes, props, enemies. There's little nodes that let you kind of quote unquote script things to happen. So obviously I said you walk in the room and it triggers enemies to spawn. So I created a trigger. I placed enemies where I wanted them to spawn. I set them up so they spawned at the right time and they played an animation, that kind of stuff. So it has some minor scripting elements to it, but I imagine once the full game comes out, there's going to be a whole lot more. And it's pretty cool. The game is really good. The music is the same guy who just did the Doom Eternal DLC soundtrack and Dusk. So if you're into first-person shooters like that,
if you like Doom, Dusk, anything like those, Prodeus.
It's a good time for sure. So
it's a cool game.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun making the level. I wish that I could do it as a job, and I feel like my level turned out pretty good. There's a little contest from Prodeus devs. They're doing a giveaway if you win the level contest. I doubt I'll win, but I wanted to try.
It's all we can do in life. Give our best effort.
And then the other thing I played this week was I finished the Doom Eternal DLC finally.
Beautiful.
It's really good. I saw on Steam that it's at mostly positive reviews and not very or overwhelmingly positive. And that blew my mind because people were complaining about
ridiculous.
Things. It is ridiculous. New songs are good. There's brand new environments for 2 of the levels that both of which look really good and are vastly different than the main game. I mean, there's one called Atlantica, and you swim with a shark. I mean,
I've never not had fun doing that.
Exactly. So they introduce some new enemies. They give you some new passive bonuses that you can equip to your character, or to the Doomslayer, I should say. There's a little bit of a story going on. There's some, like, you know how there's, like, scientists and marines and stuff that, like, are afraid of the Doomslayer, but they're like, wow, here he is. Well, in this DLC, there's some more of that where he's working with people who are helping him, like, get teleported to the right location. And this one dude's like, oh, man, whatever you want to do, man. And he's just like, I'll help you, whatever.
Yeah.
And everybody else is like, I'm out, I'm not doing it. And the one guy's like, oh, I'm in, baby, I'm in. It's pretty great. So the DLC kind of ends on a cliffhanger because obviously it's called The Ancient Gods Part 1 and there's going to be a Part 2.
Yeah, we already knew that ahead of time.
Yeah, so the new enemies, there's a kind of a spirit that possesses enemies and makes them faster, stronger, and beefier, like, health-wise. And they are so hard to fight. And then once you actually kill the enemy that is being possessed, the spirit pops out, and then on the plasma rifle, you know how the secondary fire, there's the microwave beam that you, like, stick on somebody and it stops them?
Yeah.
You have to use that to kill it, or it will possess another enemy. And I saw people complaining about that fact, which I didn't understand because, like, certain weapons just work better against certain things, and that's how you
games
kill it.
work.
So, honestly, I think the DLC is just as good, if not better, than the main game. And, what was I gonna say?
Acceptable.
The DLC expects you to have beaten the game and be good at it, basically. And I think a lot of people are like, well,
it doesn't shy away from making you toughen up.
So I think people are going back to it after, like, a couple months of not playing, and they're just
suck.
getting dumped on, and they're like, well, these new enemies suck, and this level suck, and it's like, nah, you suck.
Stink.
You suck.
You stink like a
I
boot.
think every fight in the DLC is fair. There's a ton of marauders, which is great, and now that, like, people kind of have an idea of how to fight them, they're not even the hardest enemy in the game. In fact, they're not even that hard, like, in the context of you're fighting them one-on-one, but this DLC throws them at you, like, 2 marauders at a time. A marauder with another of the new enemies behind them shooting at you and stuff. So it creates this dynamic where you have to balance fighting the marauder but fighting the other enemies at the same time. And that, it kind of goes back to my Prodeus level where you have to keep moving, you have to keep shooting, or you're just going to get stomped on.
Stomped.
So, the new Ancient Gods DLC for Doom Eternal is fire, and I highly recommend it.
Okay. Well, those are pretty much what we had to talk about for the games we played this week. But since this episode has been terrifying so far, because it is the Halloween horror episode, we were going to talk about a few of our favorite horror games. Now, do we want to say, like, our top 3? Do we just want to discuss good horror games?
Yeah, we can just talk some good horror games quickly.
Well, firstly, I was going to say, are we counting The Last of Us as a horror game? I'd say no.
I wouldn't count it.
Follow-up question. Are we counting Bioshock as a horror game?
Yeah.
So that's the best one of all time. Bioshock.
Bioshock has horror.
It scared me.
Mm.
It scared me at times, for sure. Especially one of the scariest parts of the whole game is the very beginning when the Big Daddy rams the guy through the window in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
What, like, obviously I've played it 20 times since then and I know it's coming, but, like, the first time you don't know that's coming, and that can be terrifying. Big Daddies in any situation can be terrifying, really. Spider splicers specifically I remember getting terrified of, because spider splicers are the ones that crawl on the wall or on the roof, and you the ceiling, the ceilings and the walls, and you can hear them, and you're in the dark, and you'll just hear, like, the little the little click clack
Ting, ting, ting.
of their
And
little
they,
things,
talk to
and they're
themselves.
like, oh, he's over here, or whatever they say, and you're just like looking around, and you can't see him because it's dark, and then all of a sudden they drop from the ceiling, and they'll drop down right behind you, and you don't know they're there, but then you'll hear them, and you'll just turn around, and they're standing this close to your face. It's horrifying.
Yeah, that is a great game and has some great horror elements to it. The medical pavilion in the beginning has like some creepy stuff. Sander Cohen's whole
honestly
Fort Frolic.
Yeah, all those characters are creepy in their own way. Like Sander Cohen's creepy, Andrew Ryan's creepy. That one, what's her name? Tenenbaum. She's creepy. Like they're not like
she's with the kids.
They're not like your typical like horror creepy, but they're weird.
Yeah.
They're like eerie. Like everything about that game makes you feel like you're constantly worried for your life, basically. It's like it's just weird.
And plus the fact that all of the enemy placement and spawns are random. So every time you play it's different, and you can get a Big Daddy attacking you like I think the only scripted Big Daddy fight that is like intentionally put in one spot is the first one, and then the rest are like,
because it was basically just to show you how to
deal and then the rest are just completely random encounters with those. Like obviously you can set it up so you can fight the Big Daddy in a certain place, but they roam on their own and it's random. It's not like
you can choose whether you want to run into it now or in another room or somewhere else.
Right, and it's not like
whatever.
In another game where you walk into a room and you're like, boss fight, you have to fight it.
You have to fight this now for 5 minutes.
And all the enemies in that game are random. So, well, not all. There's some that are specifically set up, but like the grand majority
there's a lot of them
are random, so it adds to that kind of horror. You never know what's around the corner in Bioshock.
Yes, sir.
That is one of my favorite games ever. So,
all right, I brought up Bioshock. Now you bring up a horror game.
We just talked about it, but Resident Evil 7.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing.
Or the Resident Evil franchise in general.
I was gonna say we just talked about Resident Evil 7, so I didn't want to talk about it too much.
The Resident Evil 2 remake when you're getting chased. Resident Evil 3 remake when you're getting chased are like just so intense and like just run. I personally liked both of those remakes a lot, and I think they're really good games, and they have some pretty tense, scary stuff.
Yeah, I'd say.
And since we talked heavily about Resident Evil 7, I won't go into that, but the Resident Evil franchise as a whole has some pretty ridiculous horror stuff to it. Resident Evil 4 is heavier on action, but the opening to me is terrifying. Like when you go to that town and you don't know what to expect, and all those people just start attacking you, and you just have to survive. Like that's your intro to the game. You have to just survive until the bell rings and they all run away. And it's like so intense. You're like, what the hell am I supposed to do, man? You're just running away trying to find ammo. So yeah, just Resident Evil. I love 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7.
I agree with all of that. I was going to bring up Alan Wake. Now,
yup.
I again wouldn't say that's your like traditional horror game, because I don't think the point of the game is to scare you. Like when I think of a horror game, I think of like Outlast and Amnesia, where they literally built those games to scare you. Like that's the only point of the game. But to me, that's what makes those games not that good, is because
they're less interesting. Because
the whole point is me getting scared. It's really not a good game. It's just me getting scared. Like if you play that game the same reason you go to a haunted hayride.
Yeah.
Like,
or
you know what I'm saying?
House,
yeah, which you go to for an hour. You don't want to spend 10 hours playing it. Like, I would get bored in a haunted house for 10 hours. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah, but by the end, you know Jimmy, the friggin' guy with a mask on.
Right. But a game with a solid story, solid gameplay, fun mechanics, like everything else on top of also scaring you is a good horror game to me. And that's what Alan Wake is, I think. It also has the mechanic of the enemies need to be shined with a flashlight before you can kill them, which is one of the most fun things, I think, that also is terrifying, because obviously your flashlight is only in certain positions where you aim it.
Right.
And enemies can be not in your light, and you have to find them, you have to flash them, and you have to shoot them, which means if multiple enemies come at you at once, it's a hassle. But there's definitely moments of that game where you're just sort of like walking, and it's just eerie and very
atmosphere.
Weird. Yeah, it has a very scary atmosphere, and there's a lot of scary parts in that game, and a lot of things that can scare you. I know our one friend literally didn't get through the game because he said it was too scary. He's a wimp, but we won't talk about that. But yeah, Alan Wake's a very good game.
Mm-hmm.
I like that game a lot.
That is a good game with some horror elements to it. And then, pretty much Resident Evil Dead Space is one of my favorites, which we already also talked about pretty heavily.
It's true.
Just going into space and finding out that there's some alien creature that basically creates like zombies out of humans and like takes over their host, and there's some weird religious cult that like worships this marker that triggers the monsters to come out, and Isaac having hallucinations and all that stuff. Like the first two games are really, really good. We've already talked about them quite a bit, so I won't get too deep into it. But those are like I like horror games, like my brother said, that
have more to them than just
right.
horror.
It's not just like I have a flashlight and I can't do anything. I just have to run away. And there's a horror game that I played. I can't remember what it is right now, but it was like the only mechanics were just like it was a walking simulator, but there was like monsters that could chase you,
and you just run away from them.
And you just run away, and everyone like loves this game.
That's Outlast. That's what Outlast is.
Right.
You have like a camera and a flashlight, and you can like pick stuff up, and that's it.
Well, this game, whatever game I'm talking about, I don't remember what it's called, but I did not. So many people love it and think it's like amazing, and the story is great. But I was so distracted from the story by the lack of like
interesting things to
anything interesting in the game to play with or like explore that I hated it so much. I forget what the hell the game is, and if I say it, I'm sure people who watch will be like, "Oh, you're an idiot! Like, what the hell?"
Yeah.
But I think it's by the Amnesia devs.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Frictional Games. Soma. I thought that game was pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. I am not a fan of it at all.
I think there's a lot of games like that are sort of walking simulators. There's a very specific audience for those types of games. I don't really know what it is, but there's definitely an audience that exists who love those type of games, but it's just not
the best part of the game was the story. There were puzzles, and basically like you're trapped in a room and you have to solve a puzzle, but there's also like this weird alien enemy thing that can kill you. There's no penalty for dying. It's not fun to try to avoid it, and it doesn't like if you die once, the tense feeling that you have is gone because you're like, oh, I can just restart and do it again.
Right.
So then when you get killed again, you're just like, this is
stupid.
And that game, Soma, to me was like, I have no positive thoughts about that game whatsoever.
Well,
it's fine. It exists.
It doesn't get better than that.
The story is the most interesting part about it, but as a game, it's not interesting to me. It wasn't fun at all.
I have one more game that I wanted to bring up that honestly is one of my favorite games I've played in like the last I don't know how many years, and it was very different type of horror, and that is Hellblade.
Oh, yeah.
Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice is like a psychological horror type, would you say?
Yeah.
It's more psychological.
It's because she has psychosis.
She has, the Senua who you play as has psychosis, so there's constantly like voices telling you what to do, or like saying your thoughts out loud. But, like, you have to wear headphones when you play that game. Because, like, it'll pop up in one ear and then in the other ear. And you're literally, like, walking through, like, figuring out puzzles or fighting enemies or whatever. And you're hearing this stuff in your head the whole time. And you don't really know what's going on.
And she hallucinates.
And she, like, hallucinates and sees weird stuff that's not really there. And, like, you don't, like, know who to trust. You don't know who's talking to you. You don't know. It's a very good story. The gameplay is very fun. The atmosphere that they set up is so good. Like, it feels so real. And it's one of the, like, most immersive games because of the whole psychosis thing with the voices in your head and everything. Because, like, when I was playing, like, by myself at night with headphones on, I was, like, consistently turning around and looking behind me because you hear voices. And sometimes I'm like, is that, like... Is someone talking? Like,
yeah, and
it freaks you out.
It's not like a voice just saying, like, hey, man. It's a whisper in your ear, like,
yeah,
you need to turn back, and all this kind of stuff. What are you doing, man?
Knock stuff over.
So, yeah, that game is a very good example of a game that has horror elements to it that isn't strictly horror. It's more of like an action-adventure game. But because of the protagonist's mental issues, it becomes like a genuinely
scary,
creepy experience. Like, the whispers in your ear are like eerie, and they actually like talk to doctors and people with psychosis and got like a realistic
stuff, like how those people would feel.
So it's a scary thought to feel like you're hearing voices.
Like, there's
whispering.
nothing more terrifying than something that could be real.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, even with like horror movies, that's what does it for me. When I watch a horror movie, so I watch like just the first thing I think of that everyone's scared of is It. Like, when I watch It and I see that clown, the first thing I think of is that is not real. That there couldn't be like a monster clown coming to murder me who can like turn into things and stuff. So I'm instantly like, I find most of that movie to be funny. Like, obviously there's jump scares and stuff, but I don't really find him that creepy because I know it's not a real thing. But like, I watch a movie like, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, like that movie Gifted, where the dude like, do you remember that movie? That was one with Bateman, I think, in it. And then that big dude. And he, like, secretly videotaped himself, like, doing stuff to his wife at the end. You know what I'm talking about? You don't remember that? Dude, it's, like, so weird. And the guy was so creepy. But, like, it's so, like, realistic. Like, it could happen. Like, it's a real thing that could happen. And to me, that's what makes it so much creepier. Because it's, like, an actual thing that could happen. And that's how, obviously, Hellblade is like, you're like some kind of like warrior woman and you fight these monster things, but her like mental thought process, the voices, like all that stuff is like psychosis. Like, it's a real thing that can happen to people and it makes people crazy. And you feel like you're doing those crazy things because of the voices that you're hearing in the game,
and you don't know what's real and what's not.
Yeah,
and what you're supposed to do.
And it's like you're literally fighting her figurative demons, if that makes sense. It's nuts. That game's good.
It's really good.
Play
game. It's a really
phenomenal acting too. From, I don't know what her name is, but I think she won an award at the Game Awards for being like the best actress. She was insane.
She's really good.
The music is also phenomenal in that game, by the way. I just want to throw that out there because we here at the Hard Mode Gaming Podcast, we freaking love video game music, and Hellblade: Senua Sacrifice has amazing game music. It is good.
Oh yeah! So, our final topic of our Halloween scary
possibly
podcast
the scariest part of the whole podcast
is that Cyberpunk was delayed
Again.
And
we just wanted to give our quick thoughts on that. Which, I mean, am I happy that I don't get to play the game for longer? Absolutely not. But I'm not one that really gets mad at this sort of thing because I'm sure they have their reasons. if the end result
they
is...
said it's for optimization for Xbox One and PS4.
There you go.
They said it runs perfectly on PC, Xbox Series X, PS5, but they want to make sure that the previous gen or the current gen consoles are up to snuff.
If the end result is the game comes out and it's a better experience for everyone, take all the time you need. Mm-hmm. That's the way I see it.
Well, the problem is that they're crunching and probably hate their lives, but also, delaying it is not really, it's only a few months and it's only for old consoles, so it's kind of weird. But, I think also the devs getting death threats is completely bananas.
Insane.
It's only until December, so we'll be able to play it then and finally check the game out.
At the end of the day, guys, it's just a video game, so there's nothing that should ever make you want to physically harm someone over the release of a video game. And if you do send those threats to people,
the game's been in development.
You need to seek help.
The game's been in development for 8 years at this point, so what's another 2-3 weeks?
Exactly.
We'll be able to play the game.
And if I play that game, I'm probably just gonna play it on PC. But I still feel like there would be people playing on Xbox One and PS4 who aren't gonna be happy if it's not optimized for them. Because if it was me, I know right now I play Call of Duty, and Call of Duty devs do not optimize for PC. Modern Warfare is very poorly optimized for PC compared to console, and I'm not happy about it. So I know that those console people would not be happy about Cyberpunk not being optimized for them. So if it takes a couple extra weeks, do it.
And
I'll live.
Yeah, I definitely want to check the game out. I don't know how much I'll like it, or I don't know. Open world games have wore on me as time has gone by, but I want to give it a shot.
I really do too,
and we'll see how it is.
I keep hoping that that's the game that brings me back to open world games, because I used to get hard addicted to open world games. I couldn't stop playing them, and in recent years I just haven't been able to get addicted like I used to. And I've kind of been hoping that I play Cyberpunk, and I'm just I can't stop playing this game.
Yeah,
I want it to happen.
I hope so too. And then I guess within the next 10 days, we'll have new next-gen consoles, and
none of us will have one because they all sold out instantly.
And then also, Pikmin 3 Remaster came out yesterday, and I played that on Wii U. It's really damn good, and people should buy it so they make a Pikmin 4. As a side note,
Pikmin games are good.
Those games are good, and Pikmin 3 is... I don't think it's arguable. I think it's just the best of the Pikmin series.
Yeah, they definitely developed that series to be better as it went along.
Yeah, definitely.
I think.
And visually it's really good too, even though it was on the Wii U. It's still, the visual style is gorgeous.
That type of game with those mechanics, all they can do is they made the first one, they learned from it, they improved, and they kept improving, and
yep.
It's good.
So I would love to be able to play Demon Souls and Spider-Man Day 1 on PS5, but...
Speaking of Spider-Man, those animations from the movie, what's Spider-Verse?
Yeah, Into the Spider-Verse.
Woo, that was so cool. If you haven't seen it...
Really cool.
If you haven't seen it, you can get an Into the Spider-Verse skin in the new Spider-Man Miles Morales game, and when you, when you're swinging through the city and stuff, the animations look like the animations from the movie. And
you can get
it's
that,
bonkers.
You can get that on any outfit, too. You can switch the animations
so
to the Spider-Verse
sick,
version. So,
holy crap.
That's really cool. I'm hoping we get to play those sooner or later. Did I tell you I pre-ordered Spider-Man Miles Morales because you have to pre-order to get that Into the Spider-Verse suit, and we're not even going to have a PS5, but I pre-ordered it anyway.
Yo, that Into the Spider-Verse suit's worth it, though. We're just going to have the game and no console. If we get the game and no console, we're going to bring it on the podcast and just be like, look at this game we can't play.
Yep. So, I mean, for the end of the year, we've got Cyberpunk to look forward to, new consoles, there's a bunch of games coming out, so there'll be plenty to talk
Spider-Man,
about
Demon
going
Souls,
forward.
new COD, a bunch of other stuff.
The Pathless.
I don't know what that is.
There's a bunch of stuff. It's going to be great.
Prodeus is coming out.
Prodeus.
Ghostrunner just came out. I'm going to keep playing Ghostrunner. I'll have more on Ghostrunner next week.
And I'll be able to discuss more about F.E.A.R next week.
Maybe F.E.A.R 2 as well.
And maybe F.E.A.R 2.
Alright. You got anything else?
Boo!
He didn't get me that time. Alright. I stream daily at twitch.tv/midsofting playing Warzone, getting lots of kills, and having lots of stupid fun. He streams almost daily.
I'll be more consistent now that my level's done.
We both stream semi-daily. I don't really stream on Friday, Saturday. He doesn't stream on Saturday.
Sunday.
He doesn't stream on Sunday.
But I might tomorrow.
And he's currently streaming F.E.A.R. This is episode 7?
Right?
I think this is episode 7. Pretty sure. No, it is. It is.
I'm also working on a video. I'm like halfway through editing right now.
I might post a Ghostrunner video. I haven't decided. I felt like I needed to get better at it before I could record myself, because I'm just going to get like people telling me how much I suck. Because it's a very, like, you have to be good at the game for it to look good. Like, you look like a moron if you're not, like, if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. So I'm working on a video. It'll probably be out next week or the week after, depending on how long it takes me to record all the footage I need. I already have all the voiceover stuff done, and I already have pretty much how the video will go out. I'm probably halfway through editing, but that'll be out sooner or later.
Alright, that is all for episode 7 of the Hard Mode Gaming Podcast. I hope you have a wonderful day.
I'm Dan.
I'm
He's
Tim.
Tim.
And you should stay hard.